Welcome to the Burrage Effect, the space where leadership is limitless, purpose is non negotiable, and impact is measured by what we leave behind. I'm Dr. Stephanie Burrage, and today's conversation is rooted in reflection, responsibility, and renewal. We just came off of the Echoes of Unity MLK event. It was a powerful reminder that Dr. King's legacy is not confined to history books or annual celebrations. It lives in how we lead, how we listen, and how we show up for one another, especially in moments when our democracy, our communities, and our shared humanity feel tested. Dr. King reminded us that defending democracy is not just about elections, it's about engagement, it's about belonging. It's about ensuring that every voice has the opportunity to help shape the future we share. And I'm so excited because today we're leaning into what he called wisdom from the margins, the clarity that comes from lived experience, the courage to speak truth, and the love that binds community together. I'm honored to be joined by Ashley Oolman, whose leadership and perspective sit at the intersection of policy, people, and purpose. Together, we'll explore what unity requires of us now, how leaders move beyond symbolism to action, and what it means to lead in the ways that leave an echo, not just an impression. This is the Barrage Effect. Let's begin. Ashley, how is it going?
It's going. Thank you so much for having me today.
Ooh, talk to me about the weekend activities. And it wasn't just the weekend, you had a full slate of activities.
Yes, yes, yes. So we started on Thursday on MLK's birthday. We had an absolutely incredible landmark tour, learning from our history, in a
Mm.
time when discomfort and truth can threaten to continue to confuse and divide us. We wanted to go back in time to better understand harms and hurts that happened, but also hope and incredible resiliency that allowed communities to rebuild. We had a bus going to Minneapolis, and we had one going through St. Paul as well. And then at the end of all that, we had a beautiful dialogue with some panel speakers and just absolute hometown heroes.
Wow. Wow. And so, from what you learned this weekend, what were some takeaways for you?
I would say, there's something for everyone to learn. It's profound how widespread, intentionally withholding information, intentionally keeping people apart from each other's histories, how deep that goes. It's not just white folks that need to learn about Black history, right?
Mm. Right?
We know what we know, sometimes where we're at, but we don't necessarily know what's happening right across the river. And so, I think one of the most beautiful things to me is young or old, immigrant, US born, believing person or not. It's like people from all these different backgrounds were able to come together and just behold, a history that whether or not, folks' personal lineage is connected,
Hmm.
there's so many connections to the way we live and the way we work and the way we play in those places today.
Now, I'm going to tell you a takeaway that I had, and I want you to talk about it. So, I had started at the beginning of the year saying, look for the barrage effect. But it was our Attorney General, Keith Ellison, who said, you've got to
Mm.
push your voice. And so, the moment that he said that, I went, oh yeah, I'm going to push this. This podcast has got to go out because voices have to be heard. We have to make sure that we're listening to people and that we're telling the stories of everyday Americans in this space. So I was literally moved into that moment of action, and I said it has to be with Ashley Oolman. So talk to me a little bit about that because that was your Sunday event. That was
Yes.
supposed to be a march, but got adjusted.
Yes, that's correct. So, we went from our tour to the U Summit, which was absolutely fabulous, talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics
Mm.
for systems change and social justice. And that's exactly right. We moved from a community march, that's a legacy event that community members outside of the council even, were asking about remembering. And so we planned a incredible march from St. Paul College to the Capitol with things happening here in the Twin Cities. The Capitol building was closed. So as Black folks do, we shifted, we pivoted. Ain't nobody going to stop us from celebrating not only our history and our giants, but the that we're still here,
Yes.
that we have something to offer in this moment. And so very quickly we pivoted to we marched ourselves online. We had a virtual rally. There were all nearly a dozen faith leaders, community leaders, from all different, again, perspectives and faith beliefs. And it was just, I would say, a sacred space. It ended
Yes.
up being, not what we envisioned, but what we needed, which was space to come together and just feel and heal in this moment. That's so painful for so all of us, really.
I heard from people in the community who were just in awe of that
Yeah,
space. And so I'll always sit in a space of you plan for one event, but you had the event that was supposed to happen. And it
that's
was
right.
amazing. I mean, there was over 100 people I know on that call. And it was just to hear from the people, hear from the history of people, and being in a space for where all people are welcome to have a voice and to talk about King's Dream and what that means for us today. I was there and it was amazing. So kudos to
Mm.
you and your leadership in that space. So talk to me. Dr. King's always talked about the beloved community, and you are really heavy in community. And I think what happens today is community is means so many different things to different people. And we heard that from many of the recipients of the Champion of Change. And I think it was Chandra Smith Baker who talked about her community and the expectations around community. But let's be honest, there are different phases. We are a multi-generational, ethnic, multi-space of people. And so a lot of times people will look at that community as just their definition of community. But talk to us how you define community and how that shows up in your work.
I love this question so much. As Chief Equity Officer, one of the main groups of people, one of the main communities of folks that I'm always thinking about and working alongside and on behalf of is, communities most impacted by the work of the state,
Yes.
communities that have been politically disenfranchised. I love this question because it challenges us to be more intentional with our language, or more specific. Um, Community oftentimes is a proxy for ethnic group
Mhm.
or an other group. That being said, in this day and age and in this time, what community means to me, and I think what Shonda said so beautifully on the stage, is that community means we have relationship with people. In particular, when in her case, she was talking about philanthropy. In my case, it's public service. In your case, it was
Mhm.
education. It it's about being in relationship with the people
Yes.
who are on the other side of what you're there to do. And so, when we're talking about outcomes, when we're talking about fairness, meritocracy, who are we talking about? Why were they left out in the first place?
Yes.
But going back to what the incredible Miss Shonda Smith Baker was saying, I think this time calls and people just continue to ask for authentic leadership. They ask for less polish.
Yes.
They want truth, whether or not it's filtered. And so to me, that's what community is about. Being community minded or community centered is that you prioritize having relationship with the people that you're serving.
And what brought me to a space of aha was one of the champions said when we asked them a question, what is your what do you lean in most? That was one of the questions I think I asked, and she stated love. And I literally I so love that because, no pun intended, because you're right. It's patient, it's kind, it is never a person that will keep score of things. And so, in today's
Mm.
world that we're living in, that is such a critical space. And so, give me your reflection on that as she was chosen as one of the champions of change in her background.
Yes. Oh, before going to the governor's office, and even still now, I don't consider myself a partisan, politician type. The reality is, doing good work, showing up again and again, being effective, can happen from anywhere at any point. And what Mai was lifting up, I think, was really the why.
Mm,
It's less about where you're going, it's less about how high you can get, but more so about how you're doing it. Um, the way when thinking about Mai's comments and the principles of disability justice that
mhm.
I also really lean into and have really been the framework that have undergirded my work as well is it's we have to go beyond good intentions. We
Yes.
have to go
Yeah.
beyond just hoping for things to be better and
Hmm.
really push ourselves, especially right now, to be clear-eyed about it's not just what we're working, against or fighting against,
Yeah.
but it's what we're fighting for. And that I think is what my was lifting up is,
Mm.
how do we can do good work and we can try new things or launch programs or
Yep.
different policies, but to what end? And what is the outcome that we want to see?
Right, right. It was powerful. And so as you're even moving into the space, there's a lot of community members who are pushing back and saying, we are looking more from our community, for more from our community partners, as they are sitting in a lot of times corporate spaces and they have the finances and the businesses to support community. How can institutions move from a space of inviting marginalized voices to actually being shaped by them? And we're seeing
Hmm.
that play out in many different spaces.
I love. So it's I think about this is my favorite way to break it down. Let's remove the focus on, people and equity and outcomes, and let's pretend it was finance. What would we do?
Mm.
We would assess, we would move with clarity, we would probably have some data, uh, you know, and so in my mind, that's what it's about. The world has changed and is moving faster than most people are comfortable with.
Yes.
And yet, our job, whether it's public sector, corporates, no matter what, no matter who, really having an idea of, again, the impact that you're having
Yeah.
or the influence that you could have, the constellation of places where you influence. And so, when I think about how institutions can and should show up, I would say step one is really assessing, what resources do you have?
Yes.
How are they working for people? How has your industry or field historically harmed people? And what are you doing to either reimagine that or reinforce
Mm.
that?
Mm.
So really getting nerdy, to be honest, and being intentional the same way that we would assess, and adjust in a business if it was based on, safety or
Mhm.
finances.
What would you use? I have a couple of questions for you, and that I think want people to walk away with. What do you do? But so in this space, tell me probably the top three projects that you worked on this past year in your role as the Chief Equity Officer, that really brought you a space of joy. That you went, the impact was major.
Yes. Okay. So the first one was just a summer initiative. It was called Clinics at the Capitol.
Mm.
And that was born out of community feedback. Folks would come to Mind, Body, and Soul, a platform you know very well,
Yes, I do.
talking about, they would share feedback and questions, about policies underway or, programs being implemented. And something that folks consistently said for years is we had no idea. How do we learn more about this?
Yes.
People wanted more, not less. And so
Mhm.
immediately folks challenging, the assumption that folks aren't interested or they're not participating,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so we created clinics at the Capitol so that, especially in the areas of opportunity,
Mhm.
grant making,
Mm.
entrepreneurship, employment, being an entrepreneur and contracting with the state, we wanted to make sure that folks had hands-on help.
Okay.
building relationships with people that can help. The outcome of that was magnificent. There were hundreds of people at the events, learning alongside state employees, but also we invited organizations, nonprofits, and other folks within the ecosystem to
Mm,
really build a mutual, what I called a mutual learning space, because it wasn't just about folks learning about this application or that platform, but
okay.
also us getting a better idea of the user experience, if you
Okay.
will, on the other side. The other nerdy thing that happened is that we learned a lot about modernizing
Mm,
our cross promotion strategies, our cross communication strategies.
okay.
And so just thinking more intentionally about
Mhm.
the way we get the word out.
Because community is broader. One group may like it one way, and then another group may need it a different way. So you were trying more ways, from what I'm hearing you say, to reach community in spaces that they need it. Oh, I love it. So really what I'm hearing you say is you had the conversations with mind, body, and soul, and then went, we're gonna have a learning opportunity, and that's gonna be the clinics at the Capitol so that it can go deeper
Yes.
into what community was sharing. Oh, I
That's exactly
love it.
right. The
I
best
love it.
part was it was at the people's house, and that was also by design, because we know that that's where a lot of business happens.
Yes.
As we suspected, and something that absolutely rang true, people were walking around staring at the walls, staring at the ceiling. And I could not even count how many people at each of those events said something to the effect of, I've never been here before.
Yes.
It's been, the last time I was here, I was on a field trip. And so even just some of those small things, intentionally developing programming and opportunities for folks to connect in spaces where they should be welcomed and
Yes.
comfortable. It was really profound, I think, for a lot of us to behold that. The
You're
second
making my
thing,
heart just
oh yes,
grow because that's the teacher in me. You were teaching. You're
oh
bringing
yeah.
you were on a field trip. You were teaching.
Yes, yes. And I'm an ADHDer, so experiential learning is my
Oh,
love language, right? So we were just submerged in content and resources, which is what you expect from an expo or like that type of thing. But what we got was, you know, relationships and
yeah.
partnerships and all that good stuff. The let's see, the second initiative deliverable, key priority that I've been working on is merging coalition building across
Mm,
different professions in the state. So
okay.
we know that no matter what industry you're in, but especially, the state, where do we invest a lot of money? Technology. Where do we think we're going to, deliver a new world of services?
Hmm.
Technology. How do we intend on modernizing old rickety systems with green screens? Technology. And
Technology.
so that it was very intentional that I started to partner with folks over at Minnesota IT to talk about the incredible customer experience frameworks that they have been building out and following. Now, it wasn't just about technology and nerding out, though. What the more important part was is merging technologists with engagement practitioners.
Mm.
And so I am the executive sponsor of a group called the Community Engagement Practitioners Group. On average, about 19 agencies show up to our
Wow.
meetings to talk about the tools, the resources, the interagency strategies and approaches and tools that we're using. And so again, this group of practitioners, amazing. This group of technologists, amazing. But
Wow.
bringing them together so that the people building the tech, can really understand the environment and the challenges that state agencies are trying to solve has been really, really powerful. And then on the flip side, engagement practitioners that hold that social and relational capital, frankly, on behalf of these agencies, also have now had the opportunity to build those connections and really help to inform and shape how future technology will be leveraged and developed as well.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so that was two. Give me one
Yes.
more.
Okay, so this is another techie thing, but this leans into my deep passion for advocacy work.
Mm,
Coming from nonprofit space, being a person served by state agencies and
yeah.
nonprofits, The way I approach my work as chief equity officer is that people can speak for themselves. We talk about folks without a voice. Why, what, what if we gave people the tools so that they can have their own voice, right?
Mm,
What we have been working on is something called the Equity Story Mapping Project. And really what it is a portfolio of maps that uses, if you think about like weather, Doppler,
yes.
kind of like heat maps,
Hmm.
it looks somewhat like that. And what these maps do is really help to visualize different conditions, such as air quality,
Mm,
environmental justice variables. Where is life the most or least affordable?
right.
Where is there the most green space and places to play? Minnesota has been a place of great prosperity and, a beacon in the nation for so many things.
Hmm.
And our job now is to make sure that folks can all access, those
Yeah.
amenities and prosperity, et cetera. So we're really, really excited to be leaning into the portfolio that Governor Walz actually started, but using this now as a tool to level the playing field by way of information sharing.
Okay.
We talked for so long about the midpoint of my career, at this point, about getting folks a seat at the table. Well, what I observed with people with a seat at the
Hmm.
table without
Hmm.
any understanding of what's on the menu. What are we even talking about at this table?
Right.
A
Right.
mom um, might not have the language about air particulates, but she probably has, a
Yeah.
vantage point and a lot of insight and experiential data to share about asthma. And so starting to kind of merge
Those
again,
together.
technologists with practitioners, community members, and nonprofit organizations, I really
Okay.
believe is the future of not only state government, but really all of these different sectors starting to braid together differently to
Okay.
meet the needs of modern day Minnesotans.
Okay. Okay. I have one or two more questions, and this is my heart space. Joy
Mm.
is something people have to work at. You are really being intentional about joy, even when there are spaces that do not feel joyful. But you need to always try to find joy, a space for yourself and joy at all times. So give me something that brings you joy.
Oh my goodness. The best part of 2025, right? A turbulent year of ups and downs and some heartbreak and heartache
Yep.
was the the organic affirmations that people shared from all again walks of life, especially for me personally, community members,
Yeah.
whether it's a grandma or a second grader,
Yeah.
the organic interactions of people being like, this is exactly what,
Yeah.
working with the government should look like, or
Nice.
this is so much more fun than I thought
Yes.
working with, the
Yes.
so those types of things, especially when it comes to again air quote the voiceless, that
Yes.
I think is what brings me the most joy. In addition, working with state employees or
Mhm.
county employees, people outside of the state system being like, this is clicking. This makes so much more
Yes.
sense. We feel so much more, we feel less stuck. And so to put a pin in it, I think solving problems that real people have named, that by solving them help us be better to each other or more, effective with how we care for each other, was such a treasure. And I like just people's energy and their faces and their expressions and hugs. I'm banging into my computer because it's just like,
It's
I
bringing you.
can
Yes.
thinking back. Yeah, yeah. Just
I can feel
thinking
it.
back to the, yes,
I can
exactly.
feel it. All right. Because
Exactly.
joy is something that we all have to continue to work on. And I always say that to
Yes.
people that when people even are having challenging times or even in their space of grief, there's a space that joy can still interact and have a space even while you're living in a space that may not feel as you'd like it to be in your life. As the young people would say, when lifes, we always need to make sure that we try to bring a space of joy or hope
Yeah.
for tomorrow. So, having asked you all of the important questions that people to me would like to know, will you answer this question for me? If someone wanted to know more about what's happening out of your office, where would they go? Is there a website? Where can they
Yes.
find the events that happen this weekend? Because everyone may not have been able to participate, but where could they go to see it on the backside?
Yes, I would go to mngov, so mn.gov/OEOA. And the MLK Hub is right there on the far right side of the screen, and you'll see all of the different events, the places we went, the
Oh,
audiences and participants that we were gathering with, and more.
nice, nice. Well, we thank you for being here on the Barrage Effect. We
Yes.
wanted to hear everything that you had to say to talk to us about what happened prior to the MLK, getting ready for it, and now that you've had a moment to reflect. And so we thank you
Yes.
for that. We wish you peace, love, happiness, and joy in the space that you're in. And we appreciate you being right here on the Barrage Effect. So thank you for all of our listeners to the Barrage Effect. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Barrage Effect. And again, we wish you the same peace, love, happiness, and joy.